Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if Ben got the Omnitrix at age 5 instead of 10. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, Little Hands, Big Watch. Ben Tennyson couldn't sleep. The rust bucket smelled like Grandpa Max's weird cooking, and the summer night was too hot, and his Spider-Man pajamas were all twisty. Plus, Gwen kept making these little snore sounds from her bunk that sounded like a broken toy car. "I gotta pee," he whispered to no one, sliding off his bunk with practiced stealth. At 5 years old, Ben had mastered the art of nighttime escapes. He'd learned last week that grown-ups got super grumpy when you woke them up just because you wanted a drink or needed to go potty or thought you saw a monster. His light-up Velcro sneakers were by the door, and he slipped them on without turning on the lights. The RV door made a tiny squeak as he pushed it open, but Grandpa Max just rolled over in his sleep. The campground was dark and full of cricket sounds, but Ben wasn't scared. He was practically a grown-up now, he could count to 20 and everything. "Just gotta find a good tree," he mumbled, wandering into the forest. The woods looked different at night. During the day, this was where he and Gwen had played superheroes, even though Gwen kept saying she wanted to be a scientist instead. Now the trees made weird shadows, and Ben ventured further than he meant to. "Uh-oh," he whispered, looking back. He couldn't see the rust bucket's lights anymore. But he wasn't lost. Only babies got lost. He was just, temporarily not found. That's when he saw it, a streak of light cutting across the night sky. Not a shooting star, but something bigger and brighter, zooming right at him. Whoa! Ben ducked as the object crashed nearby, sending dirt flying everywhere. That was awesome. Any thoughts of needing the bathroom vanished as he scrambled toward the crash. A small crater smoked in the ground, and in the middle sat a weird metal ball thing. Cool. Space stuff. Ben clapped his hands and approached without hesitation. The sphere clicked and whirred, then split open to reveal something that looked like a watch, if watches were bulky and glowy and alien-looking. "Is this a prize? Did I win something?" Ben reached for it, his 5-year-old brain not processing any potential danger. "It's green. That's my favorite color." The moment his fingers touched it, the watch thing sprang to life, leaping from the container and clamping around his tiny wrist. Ow! Hey! Ben tried to pull it off, but it was stuck tight. "That's not nice. Let go." He tugged and twisted, even tried using a stick as leverage, but the strange device remained firmly attached. "Stupid watch," he pouted, then noticed a button on its side. His eyes lit up. "Ooh, what's this do?" Curiosity overwhelming frustration, Ben pushed it. The watch face popped up with a green hologram showing a weird fiery figure. Cool beans. He twisted the dial, seeing different monster shapes appear. "It's like monster cartoons." Without thinking, because 5-year-olds rarely do, Ben slammed his hand down on the watch face. A blinding green light enveloped him, and suddenly everything felt wrong, hot, stretchy, big. "H-h-h," he screamed, but his voice came out deep and crackling. When the light faded, Ben looked down at hands made of living fire. "I'm burning. I'm burning." He ran in panicked circles, flaming arms waving wildly. Each footstep left scorched earth behind. Trees caught fire where he brushed against them. "Grandpa! Help! I'm all flamey." Ben tripped over a log, tumbling down a small hill and setting more of the forest ablaze. He wasn't hurt, didn't even feel hot, but everything around him was catching fire. "I don't like this. I want to go back to normal." Tears would have streamed down his face if they didn't evaporate instantly. "I'm sorry, trees. I didn't mean it." Ben's panicked rampage continued for several minutes before he heard a familiar voice. "Holy Mother of, Ben. Is that you?" Grandpa Max stood at the edge of the growing forest fire, flashlight in hand, eyes wide with shock. Grandpa! I touched a thing and now I'm on fire. Ben ran toward his grandfather, then stopped when Max stepped back. Don't be scared. It's me. I'm just all flamey now. Max's expression shifted from shock to something else, recognition. He approached cautiously. Ben, try to calm down. You're a pyronite, a fire-based alien. You're not burning, you are fire. I'm a what? Ben looked at his hands again. Wait, I'm an alien. That's so cool. His momentary fear vanished, replaced with childish excitement. Look what I can do. He flung his arms around, sending fireballs flying in all directions and igniting more of the forest. Ben! Stop! Max shouted, dodging a flaming projectile. You need to control it. But I don't know how. Ben whined, though he did try to hold still. The watch thingy made me like this. Max's eyes narrowed. Watch. What watch? Before Ben could answer, a distinct beeping sound came from the symbol on his chest. In another flash of green light, the 5-year-old returned to normal, standing in his Spider-Man pajamas surrounded by a partially burning forest. That was awesome. Ben jumped up and down. Did you see me, Grandpa? I was all whoosh and flame and, Ben, Max cut him off, already working to stamp out the smaller fires. We need to talk about that device on your wrist. But first, he pointed to the growing forest fire, we need to call the park rangers. It's not fair. Why does Ben get to be an alien and I don't? Gwen folded her arms across her chest, her favorite kitty pajamas wrinkled from sleep. Her auburn hair stuck out in all directions as she glared at her cousin. Because I found it first. Ben stuck out his tongue, proudly displaying the strange device now firmly attached to his wrist. Finders keepers. They sat inside the rust bucket as rain poured down outside. The forest fire had been contained thanks to a fortunate summer storm, but Grandpa Max hadn't stopped pacing since they'd returned to the campsite. Both of you, quiet down, Max said, his voice unusually stern. This isn't a toy, Ben. But it makes me cool aliens. Ben protested, fiddling with the watch. Can I turn into Flamey Guy again? His name is Heat Blast, Max corrected automatically, then caught himself. Gwen's eyes narrowed suspiciously. How do you know that, Grandpa? Max hesitated, then sighed deeply. There are some things I haven't told you kids. Things about my past. Like how you used to be a superhero. Ben bounced on the bench seat. I knew it. That's why you're not freaking out about me turning into aliens. Not exactly a superhero, Ben. I was part of an organization called the Plumbers. We dealt with extraordinary situations. Alien threats, mainly. Plumbers. Gwen scrunched her nose. Like fixing toilets? No, doofus, Ben interjected before Max could answer. Like secret agent plumbers. Right, Grandpa? Max sat down heavily. Something like that. But what's important right now is that device on your wrist. It's called the OMNITRIX, and it's one of the most powerful tools in the universe. Ben held up his arm, examining the watch with newfound awe. OMNITRIX? It contains the DNA of thousands of alien species, Max explained, his voice grave. And it was never meant for a 5-year-old. I'm 5.5, Ben corrected indignantly. I should be the one with the Omni-whatever, Gwen argued. I'm more responsible. I can write in cursive and I know my times tables up to 5. No way. Ben clutched his wrist protectively. It picked me. We're best friends now. It didn't pick you, doofus, you grabbed it. Did not. Did too. Enough. Max rarely raised his voice, and both children immediately fell silent. We need to figure out how to remove it. Ben's face crumpled. But I don't want to. I want to be a superhero. Ben, you nearly burned down half the forest. Max pointed out. That was an accident. I'll be more careful. Tears welled up in his eyes. Please don't take my watch away, Grandpa. Max studied his grandson's pleading face, then the alien device that seemed impossibly large on the boy's tiny wrist. After a long moment, he sighed. Let's get some sleep. We'll figure this out in the morning. Morning brought no solutions. Max examined the Omnitrix while Ben slept, but couldn't find any obvious way to remove it. Can I try it again? Ben asked the moment he woke up, already poking at the watch face. I want to see what else I can turn into. Not inside the rust bucket, Max said firmly. And not until we set some ground rules. Like what? Like no transforming without telling me first. No showing off to strangers. And no, boring. Ben interrupted, climbing onto the breakfast table. I bet I can be something super fast. Or super strong. Or, the watch face popped up as he accidentally bumped it against the table edge. Ben, wait, Max reached for him, but too late. Ben slammed his hand down on the dial, and green light flooded the rust bucket again. When it faded, a strange insect-like creature with 4 eyes and dragonfly wings stood on the table. Ew! Gwen shrieked, spitting out her cereal. Ben's a giant bug. I'm Bug Man. Ben buzzed excitedly, his voice high and raspy. He tested his wings, hovering a few inches above the table. This is even better than Flamey Guy. Max ducked as Ben zoomed around the RV's interior, bumping into everything. His species is called stinkfly, and Ben, be careful. Too late. Ben crashed into the breakfast dishes, sending milk and cereal everywhere, then ricocheted off the ceiling and tangled himself in the curtains. I'm stuck, he wailed, wings flapping frantically. Help. Hold still. Max tried to untangle him as Gwen doubled over laughing. Bug Boy is trapped, she teased. Serves you right for showing off. I'm not Bug Boy. Ben protested, finally breaking free and hovering menacingly over his cousin. I'm. He paused, thinking hard. Stinkfly. That's what I just, Max began, then sighed. Never mind. Watch this. Ben announced proudly, and before Max could stop him, the insectoid alien shot streams of foul-smelling goo from his eyes. Yo! Gwen shrieked as the slime splattered across her favorite shirt. Benjamin Tennyson. Ben. Outside, now. Max ordered, pointing to the door. Stinkfly Ben zipped out the door, cackling with insectoid glee. Can't catch me. This summer just got a whole lot more complicated, Max muttered, grabbing a towel for Gwen as he watched his grandson zoom into the morning sky. An hour later, they were on the road. Ben had returned to human form after the watch timed out, and now sat sulking in the passenger seat next to Grandpa Max. It's not fair, he mumbled. Stinkfly was awesome. You ruined my favorite shirt, Gwen reminded him from the back seat, where she was reading a book far above her grade level. You're just jealous, Ben retorted. I am not. R2. Max interrupted before the argument could escalate. We need supplies. There's a convenience store at the next exit. The store was small and quiet when they arrived. Ben immediately headed for the candy aisle while Gwen followed Max to pick out healthier snacks. Can I get Sumo Slammer gummies? Ben called out, already grabbing a package. They're new and they turn your tongue blue. Just one package, Max called back. And grab some fruit too. Ben made a face but obediently wandered toward the fruit stand. The watch, the Omnitrix, he reminded himself, felt heavy on his wrist. He tried pressing its buttons during the drive, but nothing happened. Grandpa explained it needed to recharge between transformations. Stupid recharging, he muttered, poking at it again. A loud crash from the front of the store made him look up. Two men in ski masks had burst in, one holding a gun pointed at the cashier. "Empty the register." "Now," the armed man shouted. Ben ducked behind a display, his heart racing. Through the gaps in the shelving, he could see Grandpa Max pushing Gwen behind him, his body tense. "This is so cool," Ben whispered, then clapped his hand over his mouth. "I mean, not cool. Bad guys are bad." He looked down at the OMNITRIX, which suddenly lit up with a ready glow. "It's hero time," Ben whispered, twisting the dial carefully like Grandpa had shown him. He cycled through the silhouettes until he found one that looked super strong. Taking a deep breath, he pushed down on the watch face. Green light flashed, and suddenly Ben was huge, a massive, four-armed red alien that barely fit in the aisle. "Whoa!" His voice boomed like thunder. "I'm big strong guy." The robbers spun around, eyes widening at the sight of the towering red giant. "What the?" The armed man swung his gun toward Ben, who reacted on instinct. With one massive hand, he grabbed a nearby shelf and flung it at the robber, knocking the gun away. With another hand, he reached out and lifted the second robber off the ground. "Put me down," the man yelled, kicking uselessly. "That's not a nice way to ask," Ben replied, his voice a childish singsong despite his monstrous form. "Say please." The first robber scrambled for his gun, but Max was faster, delivering a precise kick that sent the weapon skittering across the floor. "For arms, hold them both," Max called out, using the alien's proper name. "For arms." Ben looked at his hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, cool. I'm 4 arms. He grabbed the other robber and held them both up like action figures. "Look, Grandpa. I caught the bad guys." The entire store had gone silent, customers and employees staring in shocked disbelief at the massive four-armed creature holding two struggling robbers aloft. A woman shakily raised her phone, recording everything. "Ben," Max hissed, "we need to go. Now." "But I caught them." Ben protested. "The police will handle it from here," Max insisted, already gathering Gwen. "The watch is going to time out soon." As if on cue, the OMNITRIX symbol on 4 arms' shoulder started beeping. "Ah, man." Ben complained, then looked around for somewhere to put the criminals. He spotted a large freezer case and brightened. "I know. Timeout spot." With casual strength, he opened the freezer door and deposited both men inside, then slammed it shut. "Stay there until the police come. You guys were very naughty." The beeping accelerated, and Max grabbed Ben's massive arm, pulling him toward the exit. "We need to go now." They barely made it to the rust bucket before green light flashed again, leaving 5-year-old Ben standing in the parking lot, looking immensely pleased with himself. "Did you see me, Gwen? I was all BAM and POW and those bad guys were so scared." Gwen looked torn between being impressed and annoyed. "I guess it was kind of cool," she admitted reluctantly. "Kind of. It was super cool. I'm the strongest kid ever." Max was already starting the engine. "And now everyone in that store knows about you, Ben. Including whoever that woman was recording with her phone." Ben's eyes widened. "I'm gonna be on TV. Awesome." Max sighed heavily as he pulled onto the highway. "No, not awesome. Dangerous. There are people who would do anything to get their hands on that watch, and now they know exactly who has it." "Like who?" Gwen asked, suddenly concerned. "Like very bad people," Max answered grimly. "Much worse than those robbers." Ben fell uncharacteristically quiet, looking down at the OMNITRIX. "But I helped, right? I did a good thing." Max's expression softened as he glanced at his grandson. "Yes, Ben. You did good. But with great power comes great responsibility. That's from Spider-Man. Ben perked up instantly. And it's true, Max said. We need to be more careful from now on. News of the alien child hero spread faster than Max had feared. By evening, blurry cell phone footage was playing on local news stations. Fortunately, most people assumed the four-arms creature was an adult, not connecting it to the small boy barely visible in the background. They camped that night near a lake, far from the main roads. Ben spent the afternoon trying to activate the OMNITRIX again, with no success. Why won't it work? He whined, poking at the watch face. It's still recharging, Max explained for the 10th time, setting up the fishing gear. And that's probably for the best. You need to learn control before you transform again. But I want to be Diamond Head. You mean Diamond Head, Max corrected automatically, then frowned. How did you know about that form? Ben shrugged. I dunno. The watch kinda tells me stuff. In my head. Max's frown deepened. The OMNITRIX is connecting with your mind. That's concerning. Is it gonna make his brain alien too? Gwen asked, looking up from where she was sorting tackle boxes with far more precision than any 5-year-old should manage. No, Max assured her, though he didn't sound entirely convinced. But Ben, if you start hearing voices or feeling strange, tell me immediately. Okay, but can I try to be Diamond Guy when the watch is charged? Please please please. Max sighed. We'll see. For now, let's catch some dinner. The peaceful fishing expedition lasted approximately 7 minutes before Ben grew bored. He wandered along the lakeshore, tossing rocks into the water and pretending they were alien spaceships. Pew pew. Take that, alien invaders, he shouted, heaving a particularly large stone that landed with a satisfying splash. I'm Ben 10, protector of Earth. Ben 10. Gwen called from where she was still organizing tackle. What's that supposed to mean? It's my superhero name. Ben posed dramatically, pointing to the OMNITRIX. Because I can turn into 10 different aliens. You don't know that it's exactly 10, Gwen pointed out. Whatever, I'm still Ben 10. He went back to throwing rocks, wandering further down the shore. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the water. Ben was contemplating whether he could skip a rock all the way to the other side when he heard a cry for help. A small rowboat had capsized in the middle of the lake, and a child about his age was struggling in the water. An adult, presumably a parent, was swimming toward the child but making slow progress. Grandpa! Ben shouted. Someone's drowning. Max looked up sharply, already moving to the rust bucket for the life preservers. But he was too far away, and the child in the water was going under. Ben looked down at the OMNITRIX, which suddenly glowed green. It's ready, he gasped, twisting the dial frantically. Come on, water alien, water alien. He stopped at a fish-like silhouette and slammed down the face without hesitation. Green light engulfed him, and suddenly Ben was a small, amphibious alien with webbed hands and feet. Yes. His voice came out gurgling and wet. I'm Fish Guy. Without waiting, he dove into the lake. This new form cut through the water with incredible speed, and within seconds he reached the struggling child. Grab on. Ben extended his webbed hands, and the terrified child latched onto him. I gotcha. With powerful strokes, he swam the child toward shore, reaching it just as the parent arrived. He handed the coughing child over. Are you an angel fish? The child asked between coughs, staring at Ben with wide eyes. Nope. I'm Rip Jaws. I'm a superhero. Ben proclaimed proudly, then realized his mistake. I mean, I'm an alien. Gotta go. He dove back into the water just as Max and Gwen reached the shore with life preservers. Did you see that? The parent was saying, pointing to where Ben had disappeared. Some kind of fish creature saved my child. Fish creature. Interesting, Max replied neutrally, helping wrap the cold child in a towel. Must be your lucky day. Meanwhile, Ben swam underwater, reveling in his new form's abilities. He could breathe water. And swim super fast. And, the OMNITRIX symbol on his chest started beeping. "Aw man, not now," he complained, but the transformation reversal was already starting. Green light flashed underwater, and suddenly human Ben was flailing, his lungs burning as he desperately kicked toward the surface. He broke through with a gasp, coughing and sputtering. "Ben!" Max was already rowing toward him in their fishing boat. "Are you okay?" "That was awesome." Ben shouted between coughs. "Did you see me save that kid? I was all swoosh through the water." Max pulled him into the boat, wrapping him in a towel. "You could have drowned when you changed back. But I didn't. I was a hero." Ben beamed, shivering but triumphant. "Fish guy is the coolest." "Rip jaws," Max corrected, rowing them back to shore. "And yes, you did good, Ben. You saved that child's life." Ben's chest swelled with pride. "That's what heroes do, right?" For the first time since Ben found the OMNITRIX, Max smiled genuinely. "Right." That night, as crickets chirped outside the rust bucket, Max sat at the small table poring over an old leather-bound book by flashlight. The children had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from the day's excitement. Or so he thought. "Grandpa?" Ben's small voice came from behind him. "What are you reading?" Max quickly closed the book. "Just an old manual." "Couldn't sleep?" Ben shook his head, climbing onto the bench seat opposite Max. The OMNITRIX looked enormous on his tiny wrist, its green glow oddly comforting in the dim light. "I keep thinking about the kid I saved," Ben said, unusually thoughtful for a 5-year-old. "It felt really good." "Helping others always does," Max agreed. "Is that why you were a plumber? To help people?" Max studied his grandson's earnest face. "Yes. To protect Earth from threats most people never even know exist. Like aliens. Some aliens. Not all of them are bad, Ben. Many are peaceful." Ben looked down at the watch. "Like the aliens I can turn into?" "Exactly." They sat in silence for a moment, the only sound a gentle snoring from Gwen's bunk. "I think the watch picked me for a reason," Ben said finally. "To be a hero. Like you." Max reached across the table and ruffled Ben's hair. "Maybe it did. But being a hero isn't just about having powers, Ben. It's about making the right choices. Even when it's hard. Especially then." Ben nodded solemnly, then yawned widely. "I'm gonna make the right choices, Grandpa. I promise." "I know you will," Max said softly. "Now back to bed. Heroes need their sleep." As Ben climbed back into his bunk, Max reopened his book, A Plumber's Guide to Alien Species. If his grandson was going to wield the OMNITRIX, Max needed to prepare him for what was coming. Because something was definitely coming. The OMNITRIX wasn't just a random meteor crash. It was sent here, and whoever sent it would want it back. 3 days later, they stopped at a playground to let the kids burn off energy. Ben had transformed twice more, once into a ghostly alien he called Spooky, actually Ghost Freak, Max informed him, to retrieve Gwen's kite from a tree, and once accidentally into a tiny alien Ben named Gray Matter during a tantrum over bedtime. "Higher, Grandpa." Ben called from the swings. "I wanna go super high." Max obliged, pushing his grandson with careful strength. Nearby, Gwen was methodically building a complex structure in the sandbox, her tongue poking out in concentration. "Watch me jump." Ben shouted, and before Max could stop him, the 5-year-old launched himself from the swing at its highest point. "Ben!" Max lunged forward, but there was no way to reach him in time. Mid-air, Ben slapped the Omnitrix. Green light flashed, and instead of a small boy, a diamond crystalline alien crashed into the playground mulch. Ow! Diamond Head Ben rubbed his head. That hurt. Ben! What did I tell you about transforming in public? Max hissed, looking around frantically. Thankfully, the playground was mostly empty, with only a few distant parents paying them no attention. But I would have gotten hurt if I landed as me, Ben argued, his voice deeper but still childishly whiny. I was being smart. Max couldn't really argue with that logic. Just, be more careful. And keep your voice down. Sorry, Ben whispered loudly, then stomped over to Gwen's sandbox. Whatcha building? A quantum physics laboratory, Gwen replied matter-of-factly. Go away, you'll break it with your big diamond feet. Will not. Ben protested, then deliberately stomped near her creation. Oops, my foot slipped. Ben! Gwen shrieked as sand scattered. You ruined it. Did not. I barely touched it. Did too. Max intervened before their argument could escalate. That's enough, both of you. Ben, apologize to your cousin. But, now. Diamond Head Ben crossed his crystal arms. Fine. Sorry I almost stepped on your stupid sand building. It wasn't stupid. It was, a mechanical whirring interrupted them. All three turned to see a group of small, beetle-like robots scuttling across the playground toward them. What are those? Gwen asked, immediately stepping behind Max. Max's expression hardened. Trouble. The robots converged, red sensors blinking as they scanned Diamond Head Ben. Then, as one, they transformed, limbs extending into weapons pointed directly at him. Whoa! Ben backed up. Angry robot bugs. They're tracking the Omnitrix, Max said, pulling Gwen farther away. Ben, you need to fight them. How? Ben looked at his crystalline hands in panic. You're Diamond Head. You can create crystal projectiles, just concentrate. The robots fired energy blasts. Ben yelped and held up his arms defensively. To his surprise, crystal shards shot from his forearms, impaling two robots. I did it, he exclaimed. I'm like a diamond machine gun. Focus, Ben. Max called, already rushing Gwen toward the rust bucket. Keep them busy while we get to safety. More robots appeared, swarming from all directions. Ben tried shooting crystals at them, but his aim was terrible. For every robot he hit, 3 more advanced. There's too many, he cried, backing toward the playground structure. What do I do? A robot leapt at him from behind. Ben spun around, arms flailing in panic, and accidentally sliced through it with his diamond-sharp hand. Oh! I can cut them. Ben realized. With newfound confidence, he charged forward, swinging his arms wildly. Take that, stupid robots. His uncoordinated but enthusiastic attack worked better than precision might have. The robots couldn't predict his chaotic movements, and several fell to his crystalline limbs. Ben! This way! Max called from the rust bucket, engine already running. Ben ran toward the RV, crystal spikes erupting from his back and impaling robots that tried to leap on him. He didn't understand how he was doing it, the knowledge seemed to flow from the Omnitrix itself, guiding his movements. He dove into the rust bucket just as Max floored the accelerator. The remaining robots gave chase, but couldn't match the vehicle's speed. Did you see me? Ben asked excitedly as the Omnitrix timed out, returning him to human form. I was all slice and dice. Like a diamond ninja. You were sloppy, Gwen criticized from her seat. But I guess you didn't totally mess up. Coming from Gwen, that was high praise. Max's face remained grim as he drove. Those were scout drones. Someone's looking for the Omnitrix, and now they know you have it. Who? Ben asked, suddenly serious. I don't know, Max admitted. But whoever it is, they're not friendly. Ben looked down at the watch, now inert on his wrist. For the first time since finding it, he felt something beyond excitement, responsibility. Don't worry, Grandpa, he said, his voice small but determined. I'll protect it. I promise. Max caught his grandson's eye in the rearview mirror. I know you will, Ben. And I'll protect you. As the rust bucket sped down the highway, none of them noticed the small tracking device one of the robots had managed to attach to the vehicle's undercarriage. Miles away, on a massive spaceship orbiting Earth, a shadowy figure received the signal. So, Vilgax rasped, his tentacled face illuminated by monitor screens showing footage of a diamond being fighting robots. A child wields the OMNITRIX. How convenient. The rust bucket raced through the night, Max pushing the old RV harder than he ever had before. Ben and Gwen had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from the day's excitement and fear. I'll save you. Ben mumbled in his sleep, tiny fist clenching as if ready to activate the OMNITRIX even in his dreams. Max glanced at his grandson in the rearview mirror, a mixture of pride and worry creasing his weathered face. The boy had handled himself remarkably well against the drones, showing instinctive heroism that went beyond the OMNITRIX's powers. But he was still just 5 years old, a kindergartner whose biggest concerns should be finger painting and learning to tie his shoes, not fighting alien threats. A soft beeping from beneath the dashboard interrupted Max's thoughts. He reached under and pulled out a device that hadn't seen use in years, his old plumber badge, now functioning as an emergency communicator. This is Max Tennyson, he answered quietly, keeping his voice low to avoid waking the children. Max. Thank goodness. The voice belonged to an old friend, another retired plumber named Phil. I've been monitoring unusual signals. There's been increased extraterrestrial activity around your location. I know, Max replied grimly. It's the OMNITRIX. My grandson found it. A long silence followed. Your grandson? The 5-year-old? 5.5, as he keeps reminding me. Yes. Another pause. That's not good, Max. You think I don't know that? Max snapped, then immediately softened his tone. Sorry, Phil. It's been a long day. I understand. Listen, you need to get to Mount Rushmore. The old base is still operational. You'll be safe there until we figure out what to do. Max nodded, though Phil couldn't see him. We're heading there now. ETA about 6 hours. I'll meet you there. And Max? Be careful. Our old friend Vilgax has been spotted in Earth's orbit. Max's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Understood. Tennyson out. He ended the communication and glanced again at the sleeping children. Vilgax, one of the most dangerous warlords in the galaxy, was looking for the OMNITRIX. And it was currently attached to the wrist of a kindergartner who still needed help cutting his own food. What a mess, Max muttered, pressing harder on the accelerator. Morning found them parked at a roadside diner. Max had driven through the night, stopping only when he was too exhausted to continue safely. The children needed food and a chance to stretch their legs before the final push to Mount Rushmore. Can I get chocolate chip pancakes? Ben asked, bouncing in the booth. The OMNITRIX gleamed on his wrist, now fully recharged according to its green glow. Sure, Max agreed, too tired to insist on something healthier. Gwen. Oatmeal with fruit, please, Gwen replied primly, arranging her napkin on her lap with unusual precision for a 5-year-old. Ben made a gagging sound. Boring. It's brain food, Gwen retorted. Something you clearly need. I don't need brain food. I have the OMNITRIX. Ben held up his wrist proudly, drawing curious looks from nearby diners. Ben, Max warned. Keep it down. Sorry, Ben mumbled, then brightened as the waitress arrived with their food. Pancakes. As the children ate, Max sipped his coffee, fighting to stay awake. They needed to reach Mount Rushmore before nightfall. The old plumber base would provide security systems that could help protect Ben and the OMNITRIX. "Grandpa," Ben said through a mouthful of pancake, "when can I try being other aliens? I bet there's one that can fly. Or shoot lasers from his eyes. Or, Ben, swallow before speaking," Max reminded him. "And we need to be more careful about when you transform. But how am I supposed to practice being a hero if I can't use the watch?" Before Max could answer, the diner's television caught his attention. A news report showed footage of yesterday's robot attack at the playground, filmed by a bystander. The blurry video clearly showed Diamondhead fighting the drones. "What witnesses describe as a crystal man battling mechanical insects at Oakdale Park yesterday," the reporter was saying. "Authorities are investigating, but this marks the third sighting of unusual beings in the past week, following reports of a fire monster in the National Forest and a fish creature at Lake Wenatchee." "I'm famous," Ben whispered excitedly. "I'm on TV." "Great," Max muttered. "That's exactly what we don't need." The bell above the diner's door jingled as a new customer entered. Max glanced up reflexively, then froze. The man who walked in looked ordinary enough, middle-aged, with white hair and glasses, but something about him triggered Max's old plumber instincts. The stranger scanned the diner, his gaze stopping when it reached their table. Or more specifically, when it reached Ben's wrist. "Finish up, kids," Max said quietly. "We need to go." "But I'm not done with my—" Ben started to protest. "Now, Ben." Something in Grandpa's tone made both children obey without further complaint. They slid out of the booth, Max dropping cash on the table as they headed for the door. The white-haired man stepped into their path. "Excuse me," he said, his voice oddly formal. "That's a fascinating watch your grandson has. Mind if I take a closer look?" "Yes, I do mind," Max replied, positioning himself between the man and Ben. "We're in a hurry." "I insist," the stranger said, his friendly demeanor slipping. "That device doesn't belong to a child." Ben peeked around Max's leg. "It does too. It picked me." The man's eyes narrowed. "Is that what you think? How charming." He reached into his coat, withdrawing what looked like an ordinary pen. "Now, hand it over before someone gets hurt." Max recognized the disguised weapon immediately. "Run, kids." Ben and Gwen bolted for the door as Max knocked the pen from the man's hand. It clattered to the floor, extending into what looked like a high-tech scalpel. "Who are you?" Max demanded, keeping himself between the stranger and the children. The man smiled thinly. "Dr. Onimo. And that device your grandson possesses is of great interest to me." "Get in line," Max growled, then shoved a table into Onimo before running after the children. Ben and Gwen were already at the rust bucket, waiting by the locked door. "Grandpa. Hurry." Gwen called, bouncing anxiously. Max fumbled with the keys, glancing back to see Onimo emerging from the diner, his face contorted with rage. The door finally swung open, and the children scrambled inside. "Go, go, go." Ben shouted as Max started the engine. The rust bucket roared to life just as Onimo reached them. Max floored the accelerator, leaving the doctor in a cloud of dust. "Who was that creepy guy?" Gwen asked once they were safely on the highway. "Someone who wants the OMNITRIX," Max answered grimly. "And he won't be the last." Ben looked down at the watch, unusually quiet. "Is it my fault? Because I used it where people could see?" Max's expression softened. "No, Ben. The OMNITRIX is too powerful to stay hidden forever. But we do need to be more careful." "I can be careful." Ben insisted. "Super duper careful." "Good," Max said. Because we've got a long drive ahead, and we can't afford any more delays. As the rust bucket sped toward Mount Rushmore, none of them noticed the tiny drone that took flight from the diner's roof, following at a discreet distance. Nor could they know that back in the parking lot, Dr. Onimo was already contacting others who shared his interest in the OMNITRIX, and the child who wielded it. The rumors are true, he spoke into a communicator. A human child possesses the device. And he's already learned to use it. A distorted voice replied, "Follow them. Do not engage again until I arrive." Onimo smiled thinly. "As you wish, Vilgax." The rust bucket climbed into the Black Hills of South Dakota as afternoon faded toward evening. Ben and Gwen had spent most of the journey bickering, playing travel games, and occasionally napping, typical 5-year-old behavior despite the extraordinary circumstances. "Are we there yet?" Ben asked for the 100th time, his face pressed against the window. "Almost," Max answered, his voice tight with fatigue. He'd been driving for nearly 20 hours with only brief stops, and the strain was showing. "I can see the president faces," Gwen announced excitedly, pointing ahead to where Mount Rushmore loomed in the distance. "Presidents," Max corrected automatically. "Washington, Jefferson, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. Why do they have faces on a mountain?" Ben asked, momentarily distracted from the OMNITRIX. "Is it because they had superpowers?" "No, Ben," Max explained patiently. "They were important leaders who helped shape our country." "Boring," Ben decided, returning his attention to the watch. "I bet I could make a cooler mountain with 4 arms." Max chuckled despite his exhaustion. "I'm sure you could." As they approached the famous monument, Max turned off onto a barely visible side road, following it deep into the forest surrounding the tourist attraction. Eventually, they reached what appeared to be a dead end. "Now what?" Gwen asked, peering through the windshield at the rock wall blocking their path. Max reached beneath the dashboard and pressed a hidden button. A section of the rock face slid silently aside, revealing a tunnel large enough for the rust bucket to drive through. "Whoa!" Ben's eyes widened. "Secret base. Just like Batman." "Something like that," Max agreed, driving into the tunnel. The rock door closed behind them, plunging them momentarily into darkness before lights automatically illuminated along the ceiling. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber filled with technology far beyond anything the children had ever seen. Computer screens lined the walls, strange devices sat on workbenches, and in the center stood a man waiting for them. "Max," he greeted as they parked. "It's been a long time." "Phil," Max nodded, climbing out of the rust bucket. "Thanks for meeting us." Phil's eyes immediately went to Ben, who bounded out of the RV with typical 5-year-old energy. "Is this the boy?" he asked, kneeling to Ben's level. "The one with the OMNITRIX?" "That's me." Ben held up his wrist proudly. "I'm Ben 10. Phil raised an eyebrow. "Ben 10. It's what he's calling himself," Max explained with a weary smile. "Because of the 10 alien forms." "I see." Phil studied the device on Ben's tiny wrist. "May I?" Ben hesitantly extended his arm, allowing Phil to examine the OMNITRIX without touching it. "Incredible," Phil murmured. "And it's completely bonded to him?" "As far as I can tell," Max confirmed. "We haven't found any way to remove it." "And I don't want to remove it." Ben interjected, pulling his arm back protectively. "It's mine now." Phil straightened up. "Well, you're certainly spirited." "He's a pain," Gwen contributed, emerging from the rust bucket with her favorite stuffed cat clutched to her chest. "But he's kinda brave too." "Gwen." Ben looked both outraged and pleased at the mixed assessment. Phil turned to Max. "We should talk." "Alone?" Max nodded. "Kids, stay here and don't touch anything." "I mean it, Ben." Ben put on his most innocent expression, which Max knew from experience meant trouble was imminent. But there wasn't much choice. He followed Phil to a separate room, leaving the children to explore the main chamber. "This place is so cool," Ben exclaimed once the adults were gone. "Look at all this alien stuff." "Don't touch anything," Gwen reminded him, though she too was wide-eyed with wonder. Grandpa said not to. "I'm just looking," Ben insisted, already reaching for a glowing cube on a nearby table. "I wonder what this does." "Ben. No." Gwen grabbed his arm, pulling it away from the device. "You're going to get us in trouble." "Ah, come on. Nothing bad will happen." The argument might have escalated further if not for the sudden blaring of alarms throughout the base. Red lights flashed as a computerized voice announced, "Perimeter breach detected. Multiple hostiles approaching." Ben and Gwen froze, looking at each other in alarm. "What's happening?" Gwen whispered, clutching her stuffed cat tighter. Before Ben could answer, Max and Phil burst back into the room, both looking grim. "They found us," Max said, rushing to the main computer terminal. "Faster than I expected." "Who found us?" Ben asked, suddenly frightened despite his earlier bravado. The screen showed a group approaching the hidden entrance to the base. In the lead was Dr. Onimo, but behind him walked something that made even Max pale, a massive, squid-faced alien in imposing armor. "Vilgax," Max breathed, the name coming out like a curse. "Who's Vilgax?" Gwen asked, moving closer to her grandfather. "One of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy," Phil answered, already activating the base's defense systems. "And he wants the OMNITRIX." Ben looked down at his wrist, then back at the screen. The alien creature was terrifying, much scarier than the harmless-looking watch that had changed his life. "What do we do?" he asked in a small voice. Max knelt before his grandson, placing his hands on Ben's shoulders. "We protect you, Ben. No matter what." "But what if they get in?" Ben's lip quivered slightly. "What if they take the watch?" "They won't," Max promised. "This base has some of the most advanced defenses on Earth." As if contradicting his words, an explosion shook the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling as warning lights flashed more urgently. "Outer defenses compromised," the computer announced. "Inner breach imminent." Phil checked his weapon, a device that looked nothing like any gun Ben had ever seen. "They're coming in fast. We need to get the children to the escape pods." Max nodded grimly. "Gwen, Ben, come with me. Now." Another explosion rocked the base, knocking Ben off his feet. The OMNITRIX began glowing more intensely, as if responding to the danger. "It wants me to transform," Ben exclaimed, watching the watch face pop up on its own. "Not now, Ben," Max urged, helping him up. "We need to run." But it was too late. The main door to the chamber burst inward, and through the smoke and debris stepped Vilgax, his tentacled face contorted in what might have been a smile. "Maxwell Tennyson," the alien warlord rumbled. "Still interfering in matters beyond your understanding." Behind him, Dr. Onimo entered with what looked like mutated animals, creatures enhanced with alien technology, their eyes glowing an unnatural red. "And these must be your grandchildren," Vilgax continued, his gaze fixing on Ben's wrist. "Including the one who presumes to wield the OMNITRIX." Ben, despite his fear, stepped forward. "It's mine now. It chose me." Vilgax laughed, the sound like grinding metal. "Chose you? What an absurdly human perspective. The OMNITRIX is the most powerful device in the universe. It does not choose anyone, least of all a human child barely out of infancy." "I'm 5.5. Ben protested indignantly. "Ben, get back here." Max hissed, trying to pull his grandson behind him. But Ben stood his ground, a strange calm coming over him as he looked up at the towering alien warlord. The OMNITRIX continued to glow on his wrist, and somehow, Ben knew exactly what to do. "You want the watch?" he asked, his voice steady despite his fear. "Then you'll have to deal with all of me." Before anyone could stop him, Ben slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix. Green light engulfed him, and where a small boy had stood moments before, there now towered an alien composed entirely of living flame. Heat blast. Ben roared, his voice deeper but still recognizably childish. Come and get me, squid face. With that challenge issued, the newly transformed 5-year-old hero raised his fiery hands and unleashed an inferno against the galaxy's most feared warlord. The battle for the Omnitrix had begun. Chapter 2, Growing Powers, Growing Trouble. The rust bucket bounced along the desert highway, kicking up dust clouds that trailed behind like angry ghosts. Inside, 5-year-old Ben Tennyson sprawled on the floor with a pile of action figures, making explosion sounds as he smashed them together. And then Heat Blast goes whoosh and melts all the bad guys. He crashed a red figure into a group of villains, scattering them across the RV floor. Ben! Pick those up before someone trips, Grandpa Max called from the driver's seat. In a minute, Ben replied absently, already reaching for his favorite toy, a blue alien figure he'd convinced Max to buy him after discovering the speedy alien in the Omnitrix. 1 month had passed since the showdown at Mount Rushmore. Their narrow escape from Vilgax still gave Ben nightmares sometimes, though he'd never admit it. The memory remained vivid, Heat Blast's flames barely slowing the warlord down, Phil staying behind to activate the base's self-destruct sequence while they fled through an escape tunnel. They never saw Phil again. "Whatcha thinking about, doofus?" Gwen asked, looking up from her picture book. Despite being the same age as Ben, she read at a 3rd grade level and never let him forget it. "Nothing," Ben mumbled, suddenly self-conscious. "Just playing." Gwen studied him with that too smart look she always got. "You're thinking about the scary squid alien again, aren't you?" "No." Ben protested, then quieter, "Maybe." "Vilgax can't find us," Max reassured from the front, his eyes never leaving the road. "The cloaking tech I installed on the rust bucket masks the Omnitrix's energy signature." Ben glanced down at the watch-like device on his wrist. After a month of wearing it, the Omnitrix no longer seemed too big or awkward, it was just part of him now, like an extra finger or a second belly button. "I'm not scared of him anyway," Ben declared, puffing out his chest. "Next time I'll go 4 arms and punch his stupid face." "Language, Ben," Max warned, though his lips twitched with amusement. "Stupid isn't a bad word," Ben argued. "It's not nice," Gwen corrected primly. "You're not nice," Ben shot back, sticking out his tongue. Before Gwen could respond, Max interrupted. "We're stopping for supplies. Everyone behave, okay?" The rust bucket pulled into a small-town grocery store parking lot. After the Mount Rushmore incident, Max had kept them constantly moving, never staying in one place for more than a day or two. Today they'd reached the outskirts of a place called Billings, Montana. "Can I get sumo slammer cards?" "Please please please." Ben bounced on his toes as they entered the store. "1 pack, Max conceded. "If you stay close and don't wander off." "I never wander off," Ben protested. Both Max and Gwen gave him identical looks of disbelief. "Okay, maybe sometimes," Ben admitted. "But not today. Heroes promise." Inside, the store bustled with afternoon shoppers. Ben stuck close to Max's side as they navigated the produce section, though his attention constantly drifted to the Omnitrix. He'd learned to control his transformations better over the past month, mostly because Max made him practice in empty fields and abandoned quarries where no one could see. "Can I get apple juice?" Gwen asked, pointing to the display. "Sure thing, pumpkin," Max replied, adding it to their cart. "What about chocolate milk?" Ben tried. "You're lactose intolerant, Ben. So it gives you a stomachache, remember?" Ben pouted but didn't argue. Last week's ice cream incident had been messy enough to teach even him a lesson. Instead, he focused on the Omnitrix, subtly turning the dial with his thumb, not enough to activate it, just enough to feel the satisfying click between alien silhouettes. That's when he heard the scream. A woman at the front of the store was pointing out the window, her face pale with terror. A monster. In the parking lot. Everyone rushed to look, including Ben. Through the large storefront windows, he saw what had caused the panic, a creature that resembled a frog, if frogs were the size of cars and had multiple eyes and razor-sharp teeth. "What is that thing?" Gwen whispered, clutching Max's hand. "Trouble," Max replied grimly. The mutant frog creature let out an ear-splitting croak, then used its powerful legs to leap onto a parked car, crushing the roof. People scattered, running in all directions. Ben felt the familiar tingle of excitement in his chest. "I can stop it. I just need to." "No heroics in public," Max cut him off, gripping Ben's shoulder firmly. "We need to slip away first." "But it's smashing everything. People could get hurt." Another car alarm blared as the creature bounded across the parking lot. Through the chaos, Ben spotted something else, a man in a white lab coat standing near the edge of the lot, seemingly controlling the frog monster with a handheld device. "Look." Ben pointed. "That guy's making it do bad stuff." Max followed his gaze, then froze. "Onimo. I should have known." "The weird doctor from the diner?" Gwen asked, her eyes wide. "Yes. And if he's here, it's not a coincidence." Max pulled both children toward the store's rear exit. "We need to leave. Now." "But we can't just," Ben started to protest. "Ben," Max's voice was deadly serious. "Onimo isn't after random people. He's after you and the OMNITRIX. If you transform here, you'll give us away." The logic made sense, but everything in Ben rebelled against it. "So we just run away?" "That's not what heroes do. Sometimes the bravest thing is knowing when to fight and when to retreat," Max countered, already pushing open the back door. "We'll find another way to stop Onimo." They slipped out the rear exit into a loading area. Max led them quickly around the building, staying in the shadow of the walls. The plan was clearly to circle around to where the rust bucket was parked without being spotted. It might have worked if not for a second mutant creature, this one resembling a giant, mutated praying mantis, that suddenly landed on the dumpster beside them. "Grandpa!" Gwen screamed as the insect lunged forward. Max shoved both children behind him, facing the creature with nothing but determination. "Run! Get to the rust bucket." "No way." Ben twisted the OMNITRIX dial frantically. "I'm going hero." The mantis swung a bladed foreleg at Max, who barely dodged. The attack left a deep gash in the brick wall where he'd been standing. "Ben, just go!" Max yelled, grabbing a metal pipe from the ground to defend himself. But Ben had already found the alien he wanted. He slammed his palm down on the watch face, and emerald light engulfed his small body. When it faded, a velociraptor-like creature stood in his place, blue-skinned, with wheeled feet and a streamlined helmet. "XLR-8. Ben announced in a reptilian voice. "Time to speed things up." Before anyone could blink, he zoomed forward in a blur of motion, circling the mantis creature so fast he created a small tornado. The monster tried to swipe at him but couldn't track his movements. "Too slow, bug brain." Ben taunted, skidding to a stop momentarily. "Over here." "No, here." "No, here." Each taunt came from a different position as he raced around the loading area. The mantis grew increasingly confused, its multiple eyes unable to focus on the speedy target. "Ben, be careful." Max called, pulling Gwen to safety behind a dumpster. "I got this, Grandpa." Ben replied confidently. "Watch this." He accelerated even faster, then began running straight up the wall of the building. At the apex of his climb, he pushed off hard, launching himself like a missile at the mantis. His clawed feet connected with the creature's head, sending it crashing into the wall. Bullseye. Ben cheered, skidding to a stop beside Max and Gwen. Did you see that? I was all zoomy and then bam. Behind you. Gwen shouted. Ben spun around to see the mantis already recovering, chittering angrily as it regained its footing. "Aw man, I thought I knocked it out." Ben complained. "These aren't normal animals," Max explained quickly. "They've been mutated and enhanced with alien technology. It'll take more than speed to stop it." The mantis lunged again, but this time Ben was ready. He zoomed forward, sliding beneath the creature's legs, then circled back to deliver a rapid series of strikes to its joints. "Take that. And that." Each word accompanied a precise blow as Ben targeted the weak spots in the creature's exoskeleton. The strategy worked better. The mantis staggered, its movements growing uncoordinated as damage accumulated. But before Ben could press his advantage, a familiar voice interrupted. "Fascinating. So the child has mastered more transformations." Dr. Onimo stepped into the loading area, the frog creature hopping obediently behind him. He held a strange helmet with antennae protruding from it, obviously the control mechanism for his mutant animals. "It's the weird guy," Ben exclaimed, skidding to a stop between Onimo and his family. "My name is Dr. Aloysius Onimo," the scientist corrected irritably. "And you, child, possess technology that does not belong in the hands of a kindergartner." "I'm in first grade now," Ben retorted indignantly. "And the OMNITRIX picked me." "A common misconception," Onimo replied. "That device is far too sophisticated to pick anyone, let alone a human child. It requires study, analysis, proper scientific handling." "You mean you want to take it for yourself?" Max accused, still shielding Gwen. Onimo smiled coldly. "I merely wish to prevent a catastrophe. Imagine the damage a tantrum-prone 5-year-old could cause with the power to transform into alien species." "I don't throw tantrums," Ben yelled, stomping his XLR 8-foot in a manner that somewhat undermined his claim. "Case in point," Onimo said dryly. "Now, be a good boy and hold still. This won't hurt much." He adjusted a dial on his helmet, and both mutant creatures lunged forward simultaneously. Ben reacted on instinct, zooming between the monsters and creating a small whirlwind that momentarily confused them. "Grandpa! Get Gwen out of here. I'll keep Bug Face and Frog Breath busy." "We're not leaving you," Max shouted back. "I'll be right behind you. Promise." Ben accelerated again, becoming a blue streak circling the loading area. Max hesitated, then grabbed Gwen's hand. 30 seconds, Ben. Then we're coming back for you." They ran toward the rust bucket while Ben continued his high-speed battle. The problem was, neither creature went down easily. Every time he knocked one back, it recovered quickly, Onimo's technology healing damage almost instantaneously. "Why won't you stay down?" Ben punctuated each word with another strike against the frog monster, which responded by shooting its tongue out with surprising speed. The sticky appendage caught Ben mid-dash, wrapping around his leg and sending him tumbling across the pavement. "Ow," he complained, trying to untangle himself. "Gross." Frog spit. Before he could free himself, the mantis pounced, pinning him with its front legs. "Excellent," Onimo approached, a scalpel-like device in hand. "Now, let's see how this device is bonded to your genetic structure." Ben struggled frantically. "Get off me, you oversized bug." "Insects are fascinating creatures," Onimo lectured, oblivious to Ben's panic. "Did you know mantises sometimes eat their mates? Nature can be so wonderfully brutal." The scientist reached for Ben's wrist, where the OMNITRIX symbol glowed on XLR-8's forearm. Just as his fingers brushed the device, a rock struck him in the head. "Leave my doofus cousin alone." Gwen stood at the edge of the loading area, another rock already in her hand. "Gwen. Ben called, equal parts relieved and worried. I told you to run. Since when do I listen to you? She flung the second rock, hitting the mantis directly in one of its compound eyes. The creature reared back, giving Ben just enough leeway to vibrate his body at super speed, slipping free of its grasp. He zoomed to Gwen's side in an instant. Where's Grandpa? He asked. Getting something from the rust bucket, Gwen explained. He said to distract the bad guy. Good job. Ben gave her a thumbs up, then turned back toward Onimo. Ready for round 2, animal guy? Onimo adjusted his control helmet. It's Onimo. And yes, I believe we are. Both mutant creatures advanced slowly, backing Ben and Gwen against the wall. Ben positioned himself protectively in front of his cousin, though his XLR-8 form was starting to feel tired, a sign the OMNITRIX would time out soon. Any other ideas? He whispered to Gwen. You're the one with the super watch. Yeah, but, the beeping of the OMNITRIX symbol interrupted him. Oh. Time's almost up. The creatures pounced simultaneously. Ben grabbed Gwen and dashed sideways, barely escaping as claws and tongues smashed into the wall where they'd been standing. But the sudden movement cost him precious energy, and the transformation gave out mid-stride. Green light flashed, and suddenly Ben was a 5-year-old boy again, tumbling across pavement with Gwen clutched in his arms. They rolled to a stop against a row of trash cans. Ow, Ben groaned, rubbing his elbow where he'd scraped it. End of the line, children, Onimo advanced, his creatures flanking him. Now, about that watch. A bright energy beam suddenly struck the ground between them, sending Onimo scrambling backward. Step away from my grandkids, Max's voice rang out with authority. He stood at the corner of the building, holding what looked like a high-tech rifle, clearly not something from a typical sporting goods store. Whoa, Ben whispered. Grandpa's got a laser gun. Of course he does, Gwen whispered back, as if this was perfectly logical. Onimo narrowed his eyes. Maxwell Tennyson. Always interfering where you're not wanted. Says the man attacking children, Max replied coldly, adjusting a dial on his weapon. Last warning, Onimo. Leave. Now. I think not. Onimo touched his control helmet. Attack. The mantis and frog creatures charged toward Max, who fired his weapon again. This time the beam struck the mantis directly, shorting out the technological components visible on its exoskeleton. The creature collapsed, twitching. The frog monster leapt high into the air, aiming to come down directly on top of Max. He rolled aside at the last second, the creature's impact cracking the pavement. Kids! Run for the rust bucket! Max shouted, already taking aim at the frog. Ben looked down at the OMNITRIX, still red, still recharging. I can't transform yet. Then run. Max fired again, but the frog was faster this time, dodging the energy beam. Ben grabbed Gwen's hand, and they raced toward the parking lot. Behind them, the sounds of battle continued, energy blasts, inhuman croaks, and the crash of breaking concrete. Grandpa needs help, Ben said as they reached the rust bucket. You can't help without the watch, Gwen pointed out, already climbing into the RV. Ben looked down at the OMNITRIX again, willing it to recharge faster. Come on, come on. A loud crash drew his attention back to the loading area. Max flew through the air, thrown by the frog creature, and landed hard against the side of a dumpster. Grandpa! Both children screamed in unison. Without thinking, Ben ran back toward the fight. Gwen was only a step behind him. Stay away from our grandpa. Ben shouted, picking up a discarded pipe. Onimo turned, looking mildly amused. How touching. Family loyalty in the face of certain defeat. We're not defeated yet, Ben declared, brandishing his makeshift weapon. The OMNITRIX remained stubbornly red on his wrist. Yeah. Gwen added, though her voice trembled slightly. You big jerk. Animo laughed. Ah, the sophisticated insults of children. I'll be sure to remember them while I'm dissecting that device from your arm. Max groaned, struggling to his feet. Run, kids. The frog monster advanced slowly, its multiple eyes fixed on Ben's wrist. Animo followed behind, scalpel gleaming in his hand. Perhaps I'll keep you as a test subject, the scientist mused. Study how the Omnitrix affects human physiology during developmental stages. You're not putting me in a cage. Ben backed up, pushing Gwen behind him. It would be more of a terrarium, really, Animo corrected. With proper heating and nutritional supplements. Just as the frog was about to pounce, a blinding flash of light filled the loading area. Ben instinctively covered his eyes. When he looked again, a new figure stood between them and Animo, a towering, crystalline being unlike anything he'd seen before. Stand down, Animo, the crystal man commanded, his voice deep and resonant. You're not taking the Omnitrix or the child. Who are you supposed to be? Animo demanded, though he'd taken several steps back. Tetrax Shard, the being replied. Petrosapian bounty hunter. And you're interfering in matters beyond your comprehension. Ben stared in awe. You're made of diamonds. Just like my diamond head alien. Diamond head, Tetrax corrected automatically, glancing down at Ben. And yes, we're the same species. Animo recovered his composure quickly. Another alien? This planet is becoming infested. No matter, my creations will handle you as well. He adjusted his control helmet, and the frog monster leapt at Tetrax. The Petrosapian didn't even flinch. His arm morphed into a crystalline blade that sliced through the creature's tongue when it tried to ensnare him. The frog croaked in pain, backing away as green fluid leaked from its severed appendage. Your genetic manipulations are crude, Tetrax stated flatly. And ineffective against my kind. He slammed a crystalline fist into the ground, sending crystal spikes erupting across the pavement toward Animo. The scientist barely dodged, his control helmet knocked askew in the process. Immediately, both mutant creatures stopped moving, their programming interrupted. No. Animo scrambled to readjust his helmet, but Tetrax was already upon him, lifting him by the front of his lab coat. This ends now, the bounty hunter declared. Animo struggled briefly, then went limp in apparent surrender. But his hand moved to a hidden device in his pocket, and a moment later, a blinding flash engulfed him. When the light faded, he was gone, teleported away. Coward, Tetrax muttered, then turned his attention to the Tennysons. Max had finally regained his feet, positioning himself protectively in front of the children. He held his energy weapon ready, though it was clearly damaged from the earlier fight. What do you want with my grandson? He demanded. Tetrax regarded him impassively. Initially, I was contracted to retrieve the Omnitrix. Ben clutched his wrist instinctively. You can't have it. It's mine. So I've noticed, Tetrax replied, his crystalline features impossible to read. I've been tracking you for weeks. Watching. Creepy, Gwen muttered. Reconnaissance, Tetrax corrected. I needed to understand the situation before acting. Max didn't lower his weapon. And what have you decided? Tetrax was silent for a long moment, his gaze shifting between Max and the children. Finally, he spoke. I've decided my original contract is problematic. Meaning? Max pressed. Meaning I didn't know the Omnitrix was attached to a hatchling, Tetrax explained, gesturing toward Ben. My people have strict codes regarding the treatment of young ones, even those of other species. I'm not a hatchling. Ben protested. I'm 5 3/4. A sound emerged from Tetrax that might have been a laugh. By Petrosapian standards, you've barely emerged from your gestation crystal. So you're not going to try taking the Omnitrix? Max clarified, still suspicious. Not by force, Tetrax confirmed. Though I maintain it doesn't belong on the wrist of a what do you call your younglings at this stage? Kindergartner, Gwen supplied helpfully. Though Ben just started first grade. Yes. A first grader. Tetrax shook his head. The universe has a strange sense of humor. Ben stepped forward, his earlier fear replaced with curiosity. You're really the same as Diamond Head? Can you make crystal stuff too? Can you teach me how to use my Diamond Head powers better? It's Diamond Head, Tetrax corrected again. And yes, I could teach you. Your technique when using a Petrosapien form is undisciplined. That's because he's 5, Max said dryly. 5 3/4, Ben insisted emphatically. Sirens wailed in the distance, local authorities finally responding to the chaos at the grocery store. Max tensed, looking toward the sound. We need to leave, he said urgently. Before anyone sees Ben or the OMNITRIX. Tetrax nodded. Agreed. The fewer who know about the device, the safer the child will be. You can come with us. Ben suggested excitedly. In the rust bucket. You can show me cool diamond tricks. Ben, we don't even know if we can trust him, Max cautioned. He saved us from Onimo, Ben pointed out. That makes him a good guy. Tetrax seemed amused by the child's simple logic. I have my own transportation. But perhaps we could coordinate our movements. Max considered this, then gave a reluctant nod. Fine. But I'm watching you. I would expect nothing less. Tetrax touched a control on his wrist and a sleek, alien motorcycle materialized nearby. I'll follow at a distance. Ben's eyes widened. That is the coolest bike ever. It's a Petrosapien hover cycle, Tetrax explained, mounting the vehicle. And it's not a toy. Ah man, Ben groaned, already imagining how awesome it would be to ride. The sirens grew louder. Time to go, Max urged, herding the children toward the rust bucket. Now. They piled into the RV, Max starting the engine before the doors were fully closed. As they pulled away, Ben pressed his face against the back window, watching Tetrax follow on his crystalline motorcycle. This is so cool, he whispered. We have an alien friend now. He's not our friend yet, Max cautioned from the driver's seat. Just because he didn't try to take the OMNITRIX doesn't mean we can trust him completely. But he's like Diamond Head. Ben argued. And Diamond Head is one of my good aliens. Diamond Head, Max and Gwen corrected simultaneously. Ben rolled his eyes. Whatever. I still think he's awesome. As the rust bucket hit the highway, leaving Billings behind, none of them noticed the small drone tracking their movement from high above, or the transmission it sent to a massive ship orbiting Earth, where a tentacled figure watched with growing interest. So, Vilgax rumbled, studying the footage of Ben's transformation and subsequent battle. The child grows more proficient with the OMNITRIX. And now Tetrax shard protects him. Unexpected, but not insurmountable. He turned to a shadowy figure beside his throne. Prepare my transport. It's time I handled this personally. 3 days later, they camped in a secluded forest clearing in Idaho. After confirming they weren't being followed, by anyone except Tetrax, Max had decided they needed time to regroup and plan their next move. The Petrosapien bounty hunter had proven surprisingly helpful, setting up perimeter sensors around their campsite and sharing information about potential threats still hunting the OMNITRIX. The device contains the DNA of thousands of species, Tetrax explained as they sat around the campfire. Many would kill to possess such power. But why did it stick to me? Ben asked, poking the fire with a stick. The OMNITRIX gleamed in the firelight, looking deceptively ordinary on his small wrist. That remains unclear, Tetrax admitted. The OMNITRIX was designed to bond with sentient DNA, but the selection parameters are unpredictable. Maybe it knew Ben would use it to help people, Gwen suggested, roasting a marshmallow with meticulous precision. Yeah. Ben perked up. It knew I'd be a superhero. Tetrax and Max exchanged skeptical glances. More likely it was random chance, Max said gently. Right place, right time. Or wrong place, wrong time, Tetrax muttered. Ben frowned. You think I'm a bad hero? The Petrosapien seemed momentarily taken aback by the direct question. I think you're young. Very young, by any species standards. The OMNITRIX is a responsibility many adults couldn't handle. But I'm doing good stuff with it. Ben protested. I stopped Onimo's monsters and saved that kid from drowning and helped those people in the car crash last week. You have shown considerable courage, Tetrax acknowledged. But courage without discipline is dangerous. That's why you should teach me. Ben bounced to his feet excitedly. Show me how to use Diamond Head better. Diamond Head, everyone corrected in unison. Fine. Diamond Head. Ben emphasized each syllable dramatically. So will you? Please. Tetrax considered the eager child before him. Perhaps. But first, a demonstration of your current capabilities. He stood, walking toward an open area away from the fire. Ben followed immediately, the OMNITRIX already glowing green on his wrist. Ben, Max called warningly. Be careful. I will, Grandpa. Ben replied, already twisting the OMNITRIX dial. Going hero. He found the familiar silhouette of Diamond Head and slammed his hand down on the watch face. Emerald light engulfed him, and a moment later, a crystalline being stood where the small boy had been, though noticeably shorter than Tetrax. Tada! Ben announced, flexing his crystalline arms. Diamond Head. Tetrax circled him critically. Your stance is unbalanced. Petrosapiens center their weight differently than humans. Like this? Ben widened his stance, trying to mimic Tetrax's posture. Better. Now, form a basic crystal projectile. Ben thrust his arm forward, concentrating hard. Crystal shards erupted from his forearm, shooting wildly in all directions. One nearly hit Gwen, who ducked with a yelp. Watch it, doofus. Sorry. Ben called back, not sounding particularly sorry. Tetrax shook his head. You're forcing it. Petrosapien crystals respond to intention, not muscle. Think of shaping, not throwing. I don't get it, Ben complained. Close your eyes, Tetrax instructed. Ben did so reluctantly. Now, imagine the crystal forming exactly as you want it. See it in your mind, then let that image flow through you. Ben's face scrunched up in concentration, an oddly human expression on Diamond Head's features. After a moment, crystal began forming on his right arm, shaping itself into a crude but recognizable blade. I did it. Ben opened his eyes excitedly. Adequate, Tetrax allowed. For a beginner. For the next hour, Tetrax guided Ben through basic Petrosapien techniques. Despite his initial reluctance to work with a child, the bounty hunter proved a patient teacher, adjusting his instructions to match Ben's 5-year-old attention span. Max watched from the campfire, his expression a mixture of concern and pride. Beside him, Gwen had fallen asleep, her head resting against his arm. Enough for tonight, Tetrax finally announced as Ben's Diamond Head form began showing signs of timing out. You've made progress. That was awesome. Ben exclaimed. Did you see when I made that big crystal tower? I was like whoosh and it just grew super tall. Just remember, creating structures drains energy quickly, Tetrax cautioned. Efficiency matters in battle. The OMNITRIX symbol on Ben's chest started beeping, and moments later, 5-year-old Ben stood in Diamond Head's place, looking tired but exhilarated. Can we practice more tomorrow? He asked through a yawn. Perhaps, Tetrax replied. If there's time. Time for bed now, Max called, carefully shifting Gwen so he could stand. It's past 9. But I'm not tired. Ben protested automatically, then undermined his claim with another massive yawn. Right, Max said dryly, lifting the already sleeping Gwen. Bedtime, hero. Ben trudged toward the rust bucket, then stopped and turned back to Tetrax. Thanks for teaching me Diamond Head stuff, he said sincerely. Diamond Head, Tetrax corrected, but without irritation this time. And, you're welcome, young one. After Max had tucked both children into their bunks, he returned to the fire where Tetrax sat motionless, his crystalline form reflecting the dancing flames. You're good with him, Max observed, taking a seat across from the alien. Tetrax seemed uncomfortable with the observation. I merely provided basic instruction. Still, Max pressed, for someone who was hired to take the OMNITRIX, you've shown remarkable patience with its 5-year-old wielder. The Petrosapien was silent for a long moment. I once made a terrible mistake, he finally said. I retrieved a powerful weapon for Vilgax, not caring how it would be used. My homeworld paid the price. Petropia, Max nodded grimly. I heard what happened. I'm sorry. My people are gone because I valued profit over principle, Tetrax continued. I won't make the same mistake with the OMNITRIX. Especially not when it's attached to a child. Max studied the bounty hunter thoughtfully. Who hired you this time? That doesn't matter now. I've abandoned the contract. It matters if they send someone else, Max pointed out. Someone who might not develop your moral qualms about taking the OMNITRIX from a kindergartner. Tetrax's crystalline features hardened. It was Azimuth. Max's eyes widened. The creator himself? Yes. He was, displeased to learn his greatest creation was in the hands of a human child. He wanted it retrieved intact. And now? Now I've informed him of the situation. He's processing the information. Max leaned forward. And Vilgax? Is he still searching? Without question, Tetrax confirmed grimly. My sensors detected his ship entering Earth's atmosphere yesterday. He's being cautious this time, moving quietly. After what happened at Mount Rushmore, I'm not surprised. Max stared into the fire. We need to keep moving. Stay ahead of him. Movement alone won't save you, Tetrax warned. Vilgax is persistent and has resources across the galaxy. And he's not the only one hunting the OMNITRIX. So what do you suggest? Training the boy, Tetrax said simply. If he's to wield the OMNITRIX, he must learn to use it effectively, not just flailing about with whatever alien form seems interesting at the moment. Max sighed deeply. He's 5, Tetrax. He should be learning to read and tie his shoes, not fighting intergalactic warlords. And yet, here we are. The Petrosapien gestured toward the rust bucket where Ben slept. The OMNITRIX chose him, or at least, it's bonded with him now. We must deal with reality as it exists, not as we wish it to be. Before Max could respond, a small alarm beeped on Tetrax's wrist device. The bounty hunter stood immediately, his arm morphing into a crystalline blade. We have company, he announced grimly. Inside the rust bucket, Ben couldn't sleep. His mind raced with everything he'd learned from Tetrax, replaying the cool crystal moves over and over in his imagination. Plus, Gwen was doing that weird snore whistle thing again. He sat up in his bunk, peering out the window at the campfire where Grandpa Max and Tetrax were talking. They looked serious, which probably meant they were talking about boring grown-up stuff. Ben flopped back on his pillow, staring at the ceiling. The OMNITRIX felt warm against his wrist, almost like it was alive. Sometimes he thought it understood him, knew which alien he needed even when he wasn't sure himself. Are you really alive? He whispered to it. Can you hear me? The device remained inert, its face dark as it recharged. A sudden movement outside caught Ben's attention. He scrambled back to the window just in time to see Tetrax stand abruptly, his arm transforming into a weapon. Grandpa Max was reaching for his plumber gun, scanning the darkness beyond the campfire. Something was wrong. Ben slid quietly from his bunk, careful not to wake Gwen. If there was trouble, he needed to be ready. The Omnitrix still showed red, but maybe if he just waited a little longer. A strange sound came from the roof of the rust bucket, a soft thump, like something landing. Ben froze, listening intently. Scratching noises followed, as if something was crawling across the metal surface. "Grandpa?" Ben called softly, but Max was too far away to hear. The scratching moved toward the RV's rear hatch. Ben backed away from the door, his heart racing. The Omnitrix remained stubbornly red. Come on," he whispered desperately. "I need you to work now." The emergency exit at the rear of the rust bucket slowly began to open. Ben looked frantically for a weapon, anything to defend himself with. He grabbed his baseball bat from beside his bunk and held it ready. A shadow appeared in the doorway, humanoid but definitely not human. Its outline showed strange protrusions from its head and shoulders. "Stay back," Ben warned, trying to make his voice sound brave. "I'm warning you." "Easy, kid," the figure replied in a gravelly voice. "I'm not here to hurt you. Just to talk." The intruder stepped fully into the rust bucket, and Ben gasped. It was a tiger, if tigers walked on two legs, wore armor, and could talk. "You're a kitty alien?" Ben asked, bat still raised defensively. The creature growled. "I'm an apoplexian. Name's Riker. And you're the pipsqueak with the Omnitrix." "I'm not a pipsqueak. I'm Ben Tennyson." He brandished the baseball bat. "And you better leave before I go hero on you." Riker glanced at the Omnitrix, noting its red status. "Looks like you won't be going hero anytime soon, kid." "Lucky for you, I just want to talk." "About what?" Ben demanded suspiciously. "About the fact that you're way too young to be messing with that thing on your wrist." The apoplexian moved further into the RV, forcing Ben to back up. "Do you have any idea how many beings would tear this planet apart to get it?" "So? I use it to help people," Ben insisted. "For now, maybe," Riker conceded. "But what happens when you throw a tantrum? When you get angry and transform into something that could level a city?" Ben frowned. "I wouldn't do that." "You're 5. Of course you would." The tiger alien's eyes narrowed. "I've seen the footage. You've got power but no control. That's dangerous. Is that why you're here? To tell me I'm a bad hero?" Ben's lip quivered slightly despite his attempt to look tough. Something in the apoplexian's expression softened. "Not exactly, kid. I'm here to offer you a choice." "What kind of choice?" "I know people who can safely remove the Omnitrix without hurting you. You could go back to being a normal human kid. No more aliens hunting you, no more responsibility." Ben clutched his wrist protectively. "No way. The Omnitrix is mine." "It's not a toy," Riker growled. The conversation ended abruptly as the side door of the rust bucket burst open, revealing Tetrax with both arms formed into crystal blades. "Step away from the child," the Petrosapien demanded. Riker snarled, claws extending from his massive paws. "The bounty hunter. Should have known you'd be here." "Tetrax." Ben called, relief evident in his voice. "This tiger guy snuck in and wants to take my watch." "Is that so?" Tetrax advanced slowly, positioning himself between Ben and the apoplexian. "You're a long way from the Anner system, Riker." "You know him?" Ben asked, surprised. "We've crossed paths," Tetrax confirmed, never taking his eyes off the intruder. "He works for the plumbers sometimes. Other times, for whoever pays best." Riker bared his fangs. "At least I'm not responsible for destroying my own planet." Tetrax's crystalline form seemed to tense, though his face remained unreadable. "Leave, Riker. The child stays under my protection." The child shouldn't have the most powerful device in the galaxy strapped to his wrist. Riker shot back. He can barely tie his own shoes. Hey! I'm getting better at that. Ben protested indignantly. Not the point, kid, Riker growled. The standoff might have continued indefinitely if not for Gwen suddenly sitting up in her bunk, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Why's everyone yelling? She mumbled. Some people are trying to sleep. Her eyes widened as she spotted Riker. Giant tiger. Her scream alerted Max, who appeared in the doorway seconds later, energy weapon aimed at the apoplexian. This is getting crowded, Riker muttered, backing toward the rear exit. You're not going anywhere, Max declared. Not until you explain why you're sneaking into my RV in the middle of the night. I came to offer the kid a choice, Riker replied, still retreating. Something the rest of you seem unwilling to do. What choice? Max demanded. To remove the Omnitrix safely. To let him be a normal kid again. Max's expression showed momentary uncertainty. You can remove it without hurting him. Grandpa. Ben protested. You can't let him take it. I'm Ben 10. I'm thinking of your safety, Ben, Max replied, though he kept his weapon trained on Riker. If there's a way to remove it safely. There isn't, Tetrax interrupted flatly. Not without Asmitha's direct involvement. Anyone claiming otherwise is lying. Riker snarled. You don't know everything, Petrosapien. I know enough, Tetrax countered. Including who you're really working for. The apoplexian's eyes narrowed dangerously. Careful, bounty hunter. Vilgax sent you, Tetrax stated. To gain the child's trust, offer a safe removal, then deliver both him and the Omnitrix. Ben gasped. Is that true? Are you working for Squid Face? Kid, it's complicated, Riker began. It sounds pretty simple to me, Gwen interrupted, having recovered from her initial shock. You're a bad guy pretending to be nice. Riker looked between the four faces staring at him, Ben's betrayed expression, Gwen's accusatory glare, Max's determined stance, and Tetrax's unreadable crystalline features. Fine, he growled. Have it your way. In a lightning-fast move, he lunged, not at Ben as expected, but at Max, knocking the energy weapon from his hands. Before anyone could react, Riker had bounded through the rust bucket's side door and disappeared into the night. After him. Max ordered. Tetrax was already moving, his crystalline body glinting in the moonlight as he pursued the apoplexian. Ben started to follow, but Max caught his arm. Stay here, he commanded. Where it's safe. But I can help. Ben protested. The Omnitrix might recharge any second. Exactly why you're staying put, Max countered. If Riker really is working for Vilgax, his main goal is capturing you and the Omnitrix. Ben knew his grandfather was right, but it didn't make staying behind any easier. He watched anxiously as Max retrieved his weapon and followed Tetrax into the forest, leaving the children alone in the rust bucket. What do we do now? Gwen asked, fully awake and clearly frightened despite her attempts to appear brave. We wait, I guess, Ben replied, though waiting had never been his strong suit. He glanced down at the Omnitrix, still frustratingly red. Come on, work already. Minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. The sounds of battle echoed from the forest, energy blasts, roars, and the distinctive crack of crystalline impacts. Ben paced the length of the rust bucket, pausing occasionally to peer out the windows into the darkness. They should be back by now, he fretted after what felt like hours but was probably only 10 minutes. What if they're hurt? What if Riker beat them? Grandpa knows what he's doing, Gwen reassured him, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. And Tetrax is super strong. Yeah, but, Ben's reply cut off as the Omnitrix suddenly beeped, its face lighting up green. Yes. Finally. Ben, no. Gwen grabbed his arm. Grandpa said to stay here. But now I can help. Ben twisted free of her grasp and reached for the door. Before he could open it, something crashed against the side of the rust bucket, rocking the entire vehicle. Ben and Gwen tumbled to the floor as the RV tilted precariously, then settled back on its wheels. What was that? Gwen squeaked. The answer came in the form of a massive, clawed hand punching through the rust bucket's roof, peeling the metal back like the lid of a sardine can. Riker's snarling face appeared in the opening. "Time's up, kids," the apoplexian growled. "You're coming with me." "I don't think so." Ben twisted the Omnitrix dial frantically, searching for the right alien. "Going hero." He slammed his palm down on the watch face. Green light engulfed him, and when it faded, a small, amphibious alien stood in his place, but not the one he'd intended. "Gray matter." Ben squeaked in his new form's high-pitched voice. "I wanted 4 arms." "Stupid watch." Riker laughed. "What are you going to do, bore me with scientific facts?" "Don't underestimate me." Gray matter, Ben warned, though the effect was somewhat undermined by his 6-inch height. "I'm super smart now." "And super puny," Riker observed, reaching down to grab him. Ben dodged with surprising agility, his Galvan form allowing him to leap onto a counter, then to a ceiling light fixture. His mind raced with possibilities, analyzing the rust bucket systems with newfound intelligence. "Gwen." "The fire extinguisher," he called, pointing to the emergency equipment mounted near the door. His cousin didn't question the instruction, grabbing the extinguisher and holding it ready. "What now, genius?" she asked. "When I say so, spray it at Kitty Cat's face." Ben scampered along the ceiling, drawing Riker's attention away from Gwen. "Hey, fur ball. Bet you can't catch me." The apoplexian growled, swiping at the tiny alien with increasing frustration. "Stand still, you little pest." Gray matter Ben led Riker on a chase around the rust bucket's interior, using his small size to navigate spaces the larger alien couldn't reach. All the while, his enhanced Galvan intellect was forming a plan. "Gwen, get ready," he called, positioning himself near the RV's electrical panel. "When I hit this wire, spray him." Ben used his tiny but strong Galvan fingers to pry open the panel, exposing the rust bucket's wiring. With precise movements, he detached a specific wire, the one connecting to the overhead lights. The RV was plunged into darkness just as Ben shouted, "Now!" Gwen fired the extinguisher, aiming at the silhouette of Riker's head visible against the moonlight streaming through the damaged roof. The apoplexian roared in surprise and anger as the chemical foam hit his face, temporarily blinding him. "My eyes!" Riker stumbled backward, claws scraping against the metal as he tried to maintain his grip on the roof. "Phase 2. Ben called, scampering toward the front of the RV. "Start the engine." "I don't know how to drive." Gwen protested. "You don't need to drive, just turn the key." Gray matter Ben directed, already working on another part of his plan. "Trust me." Gwen scrambled into the driver's seat and found the keys thankfully still in the ignition. She turned them, and the rust bucket's engine roared to life. Meanwhile, Ben had reached the RV's dashboard and was rapidly reconfiguring wires beneath it. "Now, press the big red button under the steering wheel." Gwen located the button, one she'd never noticed before, and pressed it without hesitation. Immediately, a series of small energy blasts erupted from hidden ports along the rust bucket's exterior, striking Riker repeatedly. "What is this?" Riker howled, losing his grip on the roof and tumbling to the ground outside. "Grandpa's emergency defense system," Gray matter Ben explained proudly. "I just enhanced it a little." The OMNITRIX symbol on Ben's back began beeping, signaling the imminent end of his transformation. He quickly rejoined Gwen at the front of the RV. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Drive," Ben answered simply. "But I told you, I can't." "Not you," Ben clarified as green light engulfed him, returning him to human form. "Look." He pointed out the windshield, where Max and Tetrax were running toward the rust bucket. They'd obviously heard the commotion and were returning to protect the children. "Grandpa," both kids shouted in unison as Max wrenched open the driver's side door. "Are you okay?" he demanded, quickly checking them for injuries. "We're fine," Ben reported excitedly. "I went gray matter and zapped the tiger guy with your secret zappy things." Max blinked in confusion, then understanding dawned as he noticed the activated defense system. "You found the plumber tech. Gray matter is super smart," Ben explained proudly. "I figured it out and Gwen helped." Outside, Tetrax had engaged Riker again, the two aliens locked in fierce combat. The Apoplexian's fur was singed from the defense system's blasts, but he fought with undiminished fury. "We need to leave," Max decided, sliding into the driver's seat. "Tetrax can handle Riker." "But what if Vilgax shows up?" Ben asked. "We can't leave Tetrax." As if summoned by Ben's words, a blinding light suddenly illuminated the clearing. All combat stopped as everyone turned toward its source, a massive, triangular shadow descending from the clouds above. "Too late," Max whispered, his face pale in the harsh light. "He's here." The ship hovered directly above them, larger than the rust bucket by at least 20 times. Its hull glowed with an eerie green light, casting long shadows across the forest clearing. "Is that?" Ben began. "Vilgax's ship," Max confirmed grimly. "Everyone stay inside." But it was too late for hiding. A beam of energy shot from the vessel's underside, enveloping Riker in pulsing light. The Apoplexian roared in anger as he was lifted off the ground, drawn inexorably upward toward the ship. "No. We had a deal," he shouted, struggling uselessly against the tractor beam. "I was bringing you the Omnitrix bearer." His protests faded as he disappeared into the ship. Tetrax immediately retreated to the rust bucket, his crystalline form tensed for battle. "We need to leave," he urged. "Now." Max gunned the engine, but before he could shift into gear, a second energy beam struck the RV, freezing it in place. "What's happening?" Gwen cried, clinging to her seat as the rust bucket began to vibrate violently. "Tractor beam," Max explained, still fighting with the controls. "He's trying to bring us aboard." Ben stared up at the massive ship, the green light reflecting off his wide eyes. The Omnitrix tingled on his wrist, almost as if responding to the vessel above. "I can stop this," he declared suddenly, reaching for the watch. "Ben, no." Max grabbed his arm. "You can't fight Vilgax directly. He's too powerful." "I have to try." Ben insisted. "He's going to take us anyway." Before anyone could stop him, Ben twisted free and slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix. Green light filled the rust bucket, momentarily overwhelming even the ship's tractor beam. When it faded, a ghost-like alien floated where Ben had been. "Ghost freak," he announced in an eerie, echoing voice. "I can phase through the beam." "Ben, wait." Max called, but it was too late. Ghost freak Ben turned intangible and floated up through the rust bucket's damaged roof, directly into the tractor beam. Instead of being captured by it, he passed through the energy like smoke through a net. "I'm going to stop the beam," he called back, his single eye visible as a slit in his ghost-like form. "Then you guys get away." "Ben! Come back!" Max shouted desperately. But Ben was already ascending rapidly toward Vilgax's ship, his spectral form barely visible against the night sky. The Omnitrix had given him courage, perhaps too much for a 5-year-old still learning to write his full name. As he approached the ship's hull, Ben felt Ghost Freak's instinctive knowledge guiding him. He could phase through solid matter, become invisible, possess living beings, powers that would have terrified him in any other context, but now seemed like exactly what he needed. "I'll just go in, find the tractor beam thingy, and break it," he muttered to himself. "Easy peasy." He passed through the ship's hull like it wasn't there, emerging into a dimly lit corridor. Strange technology lined the walls, pulsing with the same eerie green light that suffused everything. Ben floated cautiously forward, trying to decide which way to go. If I was a tractor beam, where would I be? He wondered aloud. A sudden coldness washed over him, not physical cold, but something deeper, more unsettling. Ghost Freak's consciousness stirred within him, responding to something Ben couldn't identify. "Hello?" he called uncertainly. "Is someone there?" Indeed, a deep, rasping voice replied from behind him. "Someone is." Ben spun around to find himself face to face with Vilgax. The warlord stood at his full height, towering over Ben's ghostly form. His tentacled face split in what might have been a smile. "The ectonurite form," Vilgax observed. "An interesting choice for infiltration, though perhaps too advanced for one so young to control fully." "I control it just fine," Ben retorted, trying to sound brave despite his racing heart. "And I'm here to stop you." Vilgax actually laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Stop me? Child, you can barely reach a countertop without assistance. What makes you think you can challenge Vilgax, conqueror of 10 worlds?" "I'm Ben Tennyson," Ben declared, puffing up his spectral chest. "And I have the OMNITRIX." "Yes," Vilgax's eyes narrowed. "You have something that does not belong to you. Something you cannot possibly comprehend." Ben backed away, suddenly aware of his vulnerability despite Ghost Freak's intangibility. "Stay away from me." "Or what?" Vilgax advanced slowly. "You'll throw a tantrum? Call for your grandfather to save you?" I'll. Ben faltered, Ghost Freak's powers suddenly feeling inadequate against the warlord's overwhelming presence. Vilgax raised a device in his massive hand. "Ectonurites may be intangible, but they still have weaknesses." He activated the device, and a special frequency beam shot forth, striking Ben directly. Pain lanced through his spectral form, not physical pain, but a disruption of his very essence. Ben screamed, his ghostly voice echoing through the corridor. "The OMNITRIX cannot save you here," Vilgax continued, adjusting the device. "In fact, it has doomed you. Had you been an ordinary human child, I would never have noticed your existence." Ben struggled against the paralyzing beam, desperately trying to access Ghost Freak's powers. The OMNITRIX symbol on his chest blinked erratically. "Why, do you want the watch so bad?" Ben gasped between waves of pain. Vilgax paused, studying the child curiously. "You wear the most powerful device in the universe, and you don't even understand what it is?" "It lets me turn into aliens," Ben managed. "It contains the DNA of every sentient species in the galaxy," Vilgax corrected. "A genetic library of unprecedented power. With it, I could create armies of any species I choose, soldiers perfectly adapted to conquer any world." Ben's single eye widened. "You'd use it to hurt people?" "I would use it to bring order to a chaotic universe," Vilgax declared. "Something a kindergartner could never accomplish." "I'm in first grade now," Ben corrected automatically, then immediately felt foolish. Vilgax seemed amused by this response. "Indeed. All the more reason the OMNITRIX should be wielded by someone of greater maturity." The OMNITRIX symbol on Ben's chest beeped louder, the transformation nearing its end. Ben knew that when it timed out, he'd be completely defenseless against Vilgax. "My grandpa will stop you," Ben said defiantly. "Maxwell Tennyson is a retired plumber with outdated technology," Vilgax dismissed. "And the Petrosapian bounty hunter cannot stand against my forces for long." As if to punctuate his statement, the ship shuddered slightly, and alarms began blaring throughout the corridor. Vilgax's eyes narrowed. "It seems your family is more resourceful than I expected." He pressed a control on his gauntlet. "No matter. I have what I came for." The paralyzing beam intensified, driving Ben to the floor as his ghostly form lost cohesion. Through the haze of pain, he saw Vilgax looming over him, reaching for the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. At last, the warlord rumbled, "The power of the Omnitrix will be..." An explosion rocked the ship, throwing even Vilgax off balance. The paralyzing beam faltered momentarily, giving Ben a chance to phase through the floor, escaping Vilgax's immediate grasp. "No!" Vilgax roared above him. "Find the child. Secure the Omnitrix." Ben floated rapidly through decks and corridors, no longer concerned with finding the tractor beam. His only thought was escape. The ship continued to shudder around him, explosions echoing in the distance. Someone was attacking Vilgax's vessel, probably Tetrax or Grandpa Max. "Need to get out," Ben muttered to himself, his spectral form wavering as the Omnitrix approached timeout. "Need to find Grandpa." He phased through another wall and found himself in what appeared to be a hangar bay. Several smaller ships were docked inside, and through a massive energy field, he could see Earth below. Freedom was tantalizingly close. The Omnitrix beeped frantically now, seconds from timing out. Ben pushed himself toward the energy field, hoping Ghost Freak could pass through it just as he had the ship's hull. He was halfway there when green light engulfed him, and suddenly he was 5-year-old Ben again, falling through open air with nothing to catch him. "Ha!" Ben screamed, flailing as gravity reclaimed him. The energy field was just ahead, but he was dropping too fast to reach it. A crystalline hand suddenly caught him by the ankle, stopping his fall. Ben found himself dangling upside down, staring into Tetrax's face. That, the Petrosapien stated flatly, was extremely foolish. "Tetrax!" Ben exclaimed, relief flooding through him. "How did you get here?" "I have my own ship," Tetrax replied, pulling Ben onto the platform where he stood. "And unlike you, I don't rush into battle without a plan." Ben looked around and realized they were standing on a small, crystalline vessel that had breached Vilgax's hangar bay. The explosions he'd heard had been Tetrax forcing entry. "Is Grandpa here too?" Ben asked anxiously. "No. He's evacuating your cousin to a safe distance." Tetrax's expression hardened. "We need to leave. Now." As if to emphasize his point, a squad of robotic drones suddenly poured into the hangar, weapons already firing. Tetrax pushed Ben behind him, his arms morphing into crystalline shields that deflected the energy blasts. "Get inside my ship." Ben ran for the crystalline vessel's open hatch, ducking as energy blasts flew over his head. Tetrax backed up slowly, still providing cover. "What about the rust bucket?" Ben asked once they were both inside. "Is it okay? Your grandfather managed to break free of the tractor beam when I launched my attack," Tetrax explained, moving quickly to the ship's controls. "They're safely away." Relief washed over Ben, quickly followed by shame. "I messed up, didn't I? I thought I could stop Vilgax by myself." Tetrax's crystalline features were impossible to read, but his voice softened slightly. "You showed courage, Ben. Misguided, perhaps, but courage nonetheless." The ship hummed to life around them, its crystalline engines pulsing with energy. Outside, more drones had entered the hangar, their weapons trained on Tetrax's vessel. "Hang on," Tetrax warned, strapping Ben into a seat clearly designed for someone much larger. "This will be turbulent." He activated the engines at full power, and the ship shot forward, bursting through the hangar's energy field into open space. Energy blasts followed them, a few connecting with the ship's hull but causing no apparent damage. "Are we going to crash?" Ben asked, wide-eyed as Earth loomed larger in the view screen. "No," Tetrax replied calmly. "Though the landing may be somewhat abrupt." Ben gripped the edges of his oversized seat as the ship plunged into Earth's atmosphere, the hull glowing red-hot around them. Despite the danger, a part of him found it thrilling, like the world's most extreme roller coaster. "This is so cool," he exclaimed as they broke through the clouds, the ground rushing up to meet them. "Can we do it again after?" Tetrax actually laughed, a sound like crystals chiming together. You truly are one of a kind, Ben Tennyson. The ship touched down with surprising gentleness in a remote clearing, not far from where the rust bucket waited. As the hatch opened, Ben saw Grandpa Max and Gwen running toward them, relief evident on their faces. Ben! Gwen reached him first, throwing her arms around him in a rare display of affection. You dummy! You could have been killed. I'm fine, Ben assured her, though he returned the hug just as tightly. Tetrax saved me. Max arrived next, kneeling to inspect Ben for injuries. Are you hurt? Did Vilgax? I'm okay, Grandpa, Ben interrupted. But... I'm sorry. I thought I could stop him by myself. I was wrong. Max pulled him into a fierce embrace. The important thing is you're safe. Over Max's shoulder, Ben saw Tetrax watching them, his crystalline form silhouetted against his ship. The bounty hunter nodded once, acknowledgement, respect, perhaps even approval. Vilgax knows where we are, Tetrax warned as Max released Ben. We need to move quickly. Where can we go? Max asked, standing protectively beside the children. His ship can track the OMNITRIX anywhere on Earth. Not anywhere, Tetrax corrected. There are methods to shield its energy signature. I know someone who can help. Another alien? Gwen asked suspiciously. No, Tetrax replied. A human. A plumber like your grandfather, but one who specializes in containment technology. Max's expression cleared in recognition. Cooper. Precisely, Tetrax confirmed. His family has a compound in the desert. If anyone can shield the OMNITRIX's signature temporarily, it's him. Cooper's place is 3 days' drive from here, Max pointed out. Then we should leave immediately, Tetrax said. I'll follow in my ship, providing aerial surveillance. As the adults discussed logistics, Ben stared up at the night sky, wondering if Vilgax's ship was still up there, watching. The encounter had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. For the first time since finding the OMNITRIX, he truly understood what it meant to be its wielder, not just the power it granted, but the responsibility and danger that came with it. You okay, doofus? Gwen asked quietly, noticing his uncharacteristic silence. Ben nodded slowly. Yeah. Vilgax is really scary. Duh, Gwen replied, but without her usual mockery. That's why Grandpa and Tetrax don't want you fighting him alone. I know that now, Ben admitted. He looked down at the OMNITRIX, still recharging on his small wrist. But I'm not giving up the watch. It's mine, and I'm going to learn to use it better. Gwen studied him thoughtfully. You know what? I think you might actually be growing up, Ben. I am not, he retorted automatically. Growing up is boring. Gwen rolled her eyes. Same old Ben. But they both knew something had changed. Ben Tennyson was still 5 years old, 5 3/4, as he'd insist, still learning to navigate the world as all children do. But he was also the bearer of the OMNITRIX, with all the wonder and peril that entailed. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the childish bravado and impulsiveness, a hero was slowly taking shape, one transformation at a time. 2 days later, the rust bucket rumbled across the Nevada desert, repairs to its roof completed thanks to Tetrax's crystalline technology. Ben sat by the window, watching the alien's ship occasionally visible in the sky above them, maintaining a protective vigil. How much longer? He asked for the 5th time that hour. About 8 hours, Max replied patiently from the driver's seat. Cooper's compound is in a remote area for good reason. Ben sighed dramatically and returned to his comic book. The past 2 days had been surprisingly quiet, no attacks, no emergencies, no opportunities to go hero. Tetrax theorized that Vilgax was regrouping, planning his next move carefully rather than pursuing them directly. Ben, Gwen called from the small table where she'd been working on something. Come look at this. Grateful for the distraction, Ben joined his cousin. Spread across the table were papers covered with childish but recognizable drawings of his alien forms. "What's all this?" he asked, picking up a crayon rendering of 4 arms. "I'm making a hero guide," Gwen explained seriously. "So you can remember what each alien does best." Ben blinked in surprise. "You're helping me?" Gwen shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. "Well, someone has to make sure you don't mess up all the time." "I don't mess up all the time," Ben protested, though without real heat. He examined the drawings more closely, noticing how Gwen had written notes beside each one, simple words he could read himself, with more complex concepts that Max had obviously helped her write. "Diamond Head is good for protection," he read slowly. "XLR-8 is best for getting away fast." "Escaping," Gwen corrected. "And rescuing people from danger." Ben flipped through more pages, genuinely impressed by his cousin's work. "This is, actually pretty cool." "I know," Gwen replied smugly. "I'm smart." "And modest," Ben added sarcastically, earning a stuck-out tongue from his cousin. The moment of camaraderie was interrupted by Tetrax's voice crackling over the communication device he'd given Max. "Tennyson, we have a problem. Stop the vehicle immediately." Max braked sharply, bringing the rust bucket to a halt on the empty desert highway. "What is it, Tetrax?" "Multiple signals approaching from the north," the Petrosapien reported. "Not Vilgax's technology, but definitely not human either." Ben and Gwen rushed to the front windows, straining to see what was coming. At first, the desert appeared empty, shimmering with heat under the midday sun. Then they saw it, a dust cloud on the horizon, growing larger by the second. "What is that?" Gwen whispered. As if in answer, the dust cloud separated into distinct shapes, dozens of them, moving with unnatural speed across the desert floor. "Onimo," Max realized, his face grim. "Those are his mutant creatures." "But how did he find us?" Ben asked. "I thought we were being all sneaky and stuff." "Unknown," Tetrax's voice replied. "But they're converging on your position rapidly. I count at least 30 distinct entities." Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, relieved to see it glowing green, ready for use. "I can stop them." "Not alone," Max cautioned. "There are too many." "I'll provide aerial support," Tetrax announced. "But we should consider retreat as our primary option." Max studied the approaching horde through binoculars. "No good. They've spread out to encircle us. We'd never break through." "Then we fight," Tetrax concluded. "I'm landing now." Ben was already twisting the Omnitrix dial, cycling through alien silhouettes. "Who should I use?" "For arms. Diamond Head?" "Someone who can handle multiple opponents at once," Max advised, retrieving his own weapons from a hidden compartment. Ben nodded, finding the form he wanted. "Going hero." Green light filled the rust bucket as Ben transformed into a small, insectoid alien with 4 wings and large compound eyes. "Stinkfly," he announced in a raspy voice. "Let's bug out." Gwen groaned at the pun. "Really? What?" "It's funny." "Stinkfly," Ben protested, buzzing his wings experimentally. Outside, Tetrax's ship landed in a swirl of dust, the Petrosapien emerging with weapons already drawn. He surveyed the approaching creatures with professional detachment. Genetic hybrids, he observed as Max and the children joined him outside the rust bucket. Crude but effective. Their numbers present the greatest challenge. The mutant horde had resolved into clearer shapes now, creatures combining features of different animals with technological enhancements visible on their bodies. Wolf-scorpion hybrids, snake eagles, bear insect monstrosities. Onimo had clearly been busy. "Where is Onimo?" Max wondered, scanning the horizon. "He usually controls these creatures directly." As if in answer, a vehicle appeared behind the mutant army, a modified dune buggy with scientific equipment bolted to its frame. In it sat Dr. Onimo, his mutation helmet gleaming in the desert sun. Tennyson, he called, his voice amplified by speakers. Surrender the child and the Omnitrix, and I may allow the rest of you to live. Not happening, animal guy. Stinkfly Ben shouted back, hovering protectively near his family. It's Onimo, the scientist corrected furiously. Dr. Aloysius James Onimo. Why can no one get that right? Because it's more fun to annoy you, Ben taunted. Onimo's face contorted with rage. Enough. My pets, attack. The mutant creatures surged forward with frightening coordination, their enhanced bodies covering ground at unnatural speed. Gwen, inside the rust bucket, Max ordered, raising his weapon. Ben, stay airborne and target the larger creatures. Tetrax, I'll handle the western flank, the Petrosapien confirmed, his arms morphing into blades. Try to reach Onimo if possible. Without his control, these creatures will lose coherence. The battle erupted across the desert landscape. Stinkfly Ben zoomed overhead, raining sticky goo on the advancing mutants. The slime slowed them temporarily, buying Max and Tetrax precious seconds to take strategic positions. Take that. And that. Ben shouted, dive-bombing a particularly large wolf-scorpion hybrid. Gross goo attack. The creature roared in frustration as its legs became stuck to the desert floor. Ben zoomed upward again, narrowly avoiding its snapping pincers. Meanwhile, Max fired precise shots from his energy weapon, targeting the technological components on the creature's bodies. Each successful hit caused the affected mutant to falter momentarily, its movements becoming uncoordinated. Tetrax was a crystal blur among the creatures, his bladed arms slicing through technological implants with surgical precision. Unlike Max, he showed no hesitation in permanently disabling the mutants, though he avoided killing blows when possible. There are too many. Max called out as more creatures pressed forward from all sides. We're getting surrounded. Ben realized he was right. For every mutant they disabled, 2 more took its place. And Onimo remained safely behind his army, directing the assault from a distance. We need to get Onimo. Ben realized. He's controlling all of them with that stupid helmet. Agreed, Tetrax replied, impaling a bear insect creature that had gotten too close. But his position is well protected. Ben studied the battlefield from his aerial vantage point, his compound eyes giving him a comprehensive view of the situation. Onimo remained in his dune buggy behind at least a dozen of his largest creations, occasionally adjusting controls on his helmet to direct the attack. I have an idea. Ben announced, swooping down toward the rust bucket. Gwen. I need your help. His cousin peered cautiously from the RV's doorway. What? I'm staying inside like Grandpa said. I need you to be a distraction, Ben explained hurriedly. Just for a minute. No way. Gwen protested. Those things will eat me. They won't get near you, Ben promised. I just need Onimo to look the other direction for a few seconds. Gwen hesitated, clearly torn between fear and the desire to help. What do I have to do? Ben explained his plan quickly. Gwen's expression shifted from skepticism to reluctant agreement. Fine, she said. But if I get eaten by a mutant whatever, I'm telling. Grandpa, it was your fault. Deal, Ben agreed. Ready? On 3. He zoomed back into the air, circling wide to approach Onimo from behind while Gwen prepared her part of the distraction. 1, 2, 3. Ben called. Gwen emerged from the rust bucket, waving her arms frantically. Dr. Onimo, she shouted at the top of her 5-year-old lungs. Your mutations are scientifically impossible and defy basic genetic principles. The unexpected scientific critique from a kindergartner caught Onimo's attention just as Ben had hoped. The scientist turned his dune buggy to face Gwen, momentarily focusing his attention away from the main battle. Impossible? Onimo sputtered indignantly. How dare you? My work is revolutionary. What would a child know about genetic science? I can read at a 3rd grade level. Gwen shot back. And your mutations violate Mendel's laws of inheritance. While Onimo was distracted by this unusual challenge to his scientific credentials, Ben zoomed silently around behind him. With perfect timing, he unleashed a massive glob of Stinkfly's most adhesive slime directly onto Onimo's mutation helmet. What? Onimo shrieked as the controls short-circuited, sparks flying from the now gummed-up technology. No. The effect on the mutant army was immediate and dramatic. Without Onimo's coordinating control, the creatures faltered, their movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. Some turned on each other, others wandered aimlessly, and a few simply collapsed as their technological enhancements failed. It worked. Ben crowed triumphantly, hovering above Onimo's vehicle. Not so smart now, huh, animal guy. It's Onimo, the scientist screeched, frantically trying to scrape the slime from his helmet. You miserable child. Do you have any idea what you've done? Save the day. Ben suggested cheerfully. That's kind of my thing now. Before Onimo could respond, Tetrax appeared beside the dune buggy, crystal hands seizing the scientist by his lab coat. Your creatures are defeated, the Petrosapien stated flatly. And you have much to answer for. This isn't over. Onimo declared, still struggling with his ruined helmet. I'll build more. Better. Stronger. Not today, Max announced, joining them with his weapon trained on Onimo. The plumbers will be very interested in your illegal use of alien technology. Ben landed beside them, the OMNITRIX symbol on his head beginning to beep. Looks like my time's almost up. Perfect timing, Gwen remarked, approaching cautiously now that the mutant creatures had been neutralized. You actually didn't mess up this time. Thanks for the distraction, Ben replied sincerely. That was some good science white trash talk. Gwen grinned. I've been reading about genetics. I knew it would make him mad. Green light flashed as Ben returned to human form, the 5-year-old looking exceptionally pleased with himself. That was awesome, he declared, bouncing excitedly. We were like a real superhero team. Gwen with the smart talk, me with the slime attack, Grandpa and Tetrax with the fighting. Max ruffled his grandson's hair affectionately. You did good, Ben. Both of you. Indeed, Tetrax agreed, securing Onimo with crystal restraints. The plan was, surprisingly effective. What do we do with him now? Gwen asked, eyeing Onimo warily. I'll contact the nearest plumber outpost, Max decided. They'll take him into custody. And his pets? Ben gestured to the mutant creatures, most of which were now wandering aimlessly across the desert. They'll be contained and studied, Max explained. Maybe even returned to something close to their original forms. As Max secured Onimo in the rust bucket and contacted his former plumber colleagues, Ben found himself standing beside Tetrax, watching the scattered mutants from a safe distance. I did better this time, right? Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Continue the story forward. Okay, go on with the next chapter. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.